I was 6 years old when I saw my first Bond movie. The film started with this incredible ski chase. There were guns, explosions, stunts, and then suddenly, this cliff edge. When Bond went over, there was this eerie silence. Everyone in the audience started applauding. I'd never seen anything like it. And from that moment on, I was obsessed with James Bond. When I was young, I put a little sign on my door, you know, David William, spy for hire, and sort of shut the door and sort of waited there, hoping that someone might knock on the door and say, oh, we need you to do some spying, but unfortunately, no one did.
You're booked on the 8:30 plane in the morning. If there's any chance of us getting a lector, we simply must look into it.
Suppose when she meets me in the flesh, I don't come up to expectations.
Just see that you do.
First James Bond movie I remember going to see, I went to see Thunderball when it came out. I was taken by my dad.
How old were you?
I guess I was
Probably about 30?
Yeah, I was about 45, I think, because it was 1927, wasn't it? I don't know, I must have been a little kid. And I remember not quite, kind of knowing what Bond was, but not knowing what Bond was.
Did you go and then see every Bond film that's in?
I think we did.
Yeah.
We, as a family almost, you know, it became like the dad would take the
You've
boys.
got lots of brothers, haven't you?
I've got 4 brothers and 1 father, and he would take all of us to see the Bond movies, and we loved it. And then, obviously, as I got older, I now take him. In those days, of course, and youngsters won't understand this, you saw a movie when it came out of the cinema, and that was it. And then about 20 years later, it would appear on television, and in between, you couldn't see it.
No.
So, you know, the Bond movies weren't as readily available. Now, of course, kids, they play them on video games, they watch them on TV, and they've got DVDs, so you can see them as often as you want. But back then, it was a rare treat, and you had to drip feed it to yourself.
But did you, at that age, did you respond to Bond's style?
I think, you know, even at a very early age, you know that he is the coolest man on the planet, and that's what you love about him.
I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
And just at that age, knowing someone is the best fighter, and knowing someone has the funniest lines, all that kind of stuff works, and you sit there thinking, I want to be like him.
That gun looks more fitting for a woman.
Do you know much about guns, Mr. Bond?
No, I know a little about women.
The big thing, the point of identification with the character, seems the most important thing because action movies come and go, but there's something about Bond that's very special.
Well, this is interesting because the character outlives the people who play him, and that's really rare.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
How much has Bond informed your life? I mean, how much have you aspired to be like James Bond? Because people, I think, do see you as a James Bond figure. Very late era Roger Moore.
And meanwhile, how do you kill 5 hours in Rio if you don't samba?
OK? I'm obviously the Roger Moore type. You know, a bit foolish, yes, but charming and long-lasting.
Over there.
You missed, Mr. Bond. Did I?
He doesn't change as a character,
Yeah.
apart from On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Which, of course, in my eyes and in many eyes, is the best Bond movie because of that, because it humanises him a little bit and you see him go on a journey.
I love you. I know I'll never find another girl like you. Will you marry me?
I've got a theory for you that I came up with on the way here today, which is that, in a way, the perfect Bond girl is Shirley Eaton in Goldfinger. She's absolutely exquisite. They've painted her gold so she looks even more like a beautiful object than all the other women, and then they kill her. So they don't have to bother with any of that boring calls after, you're right, yeah, no, I can't see you anymore.
What
I'm
do you
seeing
think
another girl,
happens
Russian
the next
girl.
day? Because you see always Bond at the end of the movie with the girl. And then what do you think he says the next morning? Do you think he ever says that I'm sorry, I'm gay?
How dare you suggest Bond might be gay?
Well, what
What's
about
wrong
when
with
he
you?
wears-
When you woke up this morning, what was wrong with you that
No.
you would say something as foul as
What,
that.
what about when he wears
Not
that
there's anything
little...
wrong with being little.
What about when he wears that little powder blue toweling
What
robe
about
in-
it?
in
What
Goldfinger?
about it? Kind of man not walk around in a blue toweling, shorty little jumpsuit thing? He's Scottish, for God's sake. He's a Scotsman.
He couldn't be more of a man, could he?
He could not be more of a man. He's like the most manly man on the planet.
When I was a child watching these films, I thought that's how men got on with women. You know what I mean? I thought that's what it was all about. I think he does seduce. He's very confident. He's very sexually confident as a character. But I think that's a very hard thing to pull off and not something that I could pull off in any way.
Oh, well done.
Thank you very much. Samantha Bond, you played Miss Moneypenny in 4 James Bond films. What do you think makes Bond so attractive to women?
Gosh, I always think it depends a bit on the woman and a bit on the Bond. My Bond is tall, dark, handsome, sexy, with twinkly Irish eyes.
Good evening, Moneypenny.
Good evening, James. And we'll meet you in the Situation Room. I'm to take you straight in.
I've never seen you after hours, Moneypenny. Lovely.
Thank you, James.
Out on some kind of professional assignment? Dressing to kill?
I know you'll find this crushing, 007. But I don't sit at home every night praying for some international incident so I can run down here all dressed up to impress James Bond. I was on a date, if you must know, with a gentleman. We went to the theatre together.
Moneypenny, I'm devastated. What would I ever do without you?
As far as I can remember, James, you've never had me.
Moneypenny's attitude to Bond, I mean, how do you sum that up?
She was never a girl who was going to be interested in, you know, a quickie or a little weekend away. I want him, and I want him a little bit calmer. Not completely calm, but when he's grown up inside himself a wee bit, then...
So you're always sort of living in hope that one day you might get together? Because there's a brilliant scene in Die Another Day where we see Moneypenny's fantasy.
Yes.
And you actually get to kiss Pierce Brosnan.
Yes, you do.
James.
Moneypenny.
Oh, James.
Moneypenny?
I was, just testing it out.
I think Moneypenny is the woman Bond would want to be with.
If he was going to settle down.
Yeah, if he was going to settle
I absolutely agree with you. And he will one day.
And
There'll be a knock on my door in my cottage in the country, and
He'll be ready.
Mr. Franks, your passport is quite in order.
Well, anyone seeing you in that outfit, Moneypenny, would most certainly be discouraged from leaving the country. What can I bring you back from Holland?
A diamond? In a ring?
Would you settle for a tulip?
Yes.
I always think those moments are really beautiful when you kind of just get a sense
It's
of
not
her.
the subtlest Moneypenny line ever, though, is it? It's
No.
like asking for an engagement ring.
I know, but it's just kind of rather lovely because
Yeah.
you watching and think, oh, I'd like them to get engaged, actually. But the films would make it a bit boring if you just sort of settle down. And
It would make it slightly different, wouldn't it? Oh, sorry, love, I've got to get back
you
to
just
the
saw
wine.
them, like, cooking a Sunday roast and mowing the garden and things like that. Do you think that his relationship to women, the fact that he can't settle down, do you feel that's informed by the fact that his wife was killed, so...
I suspect that if the one woman that you truly loved enough to want to marry her were killed on your wedding day, that might put you off, yes.
It's Blofeld. It's Blofeld.
How do you think it changes the dynamic having a female M to having a male M? Does that change the dynamic between Moneypenny M and Bond?
There's always been a slight element of the girls against Bond. There's a scene in the car when they almost gang up on him, and there's
I rather
always...
like that, because I think you get that
Yeah.
a little bit more with Judy and yourself.
Yeah.
You get a sense that they love Bond, but they probably talk about him a little bit behind his back.
Yeah, although I think Moneypenny would be quite careful what she said to M. I'm not sure M would approve of the silent lust that goes on in the outer office.
Your job is to find out whether Carver or someone in his organization sent that ship off course and why. Use your relationship with Mrs. Carver if necessary.
I doubt if she'll remember me.
Remind her. Then pump her for information.
You'll just have to decide how much pumping is needed, James.
If only that were true of you and I, Moneypenny.
Bond often shows very little respect for M. Is that, do you think, a big part of the appeal of the character?
I don't think it's disrespect. I think it is a meeting of two actually incredibly similar intellects. The bit that Bond finds frustrating, which is a huge part of his appeal, is the rules, the confines of his job.
Yes, he can't really work within the rules,
No,
so he
and
sometimes
M's
has
job-
to be insubordinate.
Absolutely. At the same time as it being a deeply annoying part of his character, it's also an incredibly attractive streak, I think.
This department is not concerned with your personal problems. Do you understand? You were supposed to observe Mr. Goldfinger, not borrow his girlfriend.
You have an assignment, and I expect you to carry it out objectively and professionally.
You don't seem too pleased to see me.
If I'd had my way, you'd still be in North Korea.
And one day, Daniel Craig probably will have to move on as James Bond. Who do you think could play the next James Bond?
Oh, Lord, it took them years and years of speculation to find this one. I couldn't begin to guess.
Could be me. A lot of people are saying it could be me.
It could be you.
A lot of people are saying that, yeah.
Who said that?
My mum said that.
Your mum.
Sorry about the leg. Skiing?
Rien ne va plus. Rien ne va plus. Merci, madame.
Sheer magnetism, Danny.
Good God. The Vanish.
I've always wanted to use Bond's gadgets. This was a funny moment in Live and Let Die when you see he's got a digital watch, and it's one of those digital watches where you have to press the buttons and the red sort of display sort of lights up. Wow, everyone in like the cinema in the early 70s must have gone, wow, a digital watch. Now, Jimmy, you tell me you're a comedian?
Of sorts, yes.
Yeah, and you're also a big Bond fan.
Yes,
and we're going to
indeed.
talk about the gadgets. Now, can you guess what this is? It is the man with the golden gun.
Imagine that.
It is, of course, the cigarette case, the lighter, the Mont Blanc pen, but it only takes one bullet.
Right.
A golden bullet.
That is, yeah. He's slightly obsessed by the gold, isn't he? Who played him again?
Christopher Lee.
Right. Looking at Christopher Lee, you wouldn't think, I bet he's into bling.
Well, he is. He also, do you remember the other thing about him? Give you a clue. 1, 2, 3.
3 testicles?
No, 3 nipples.
I was close.
Do you remember the scene where he takes the gun and rubs it over Maud Adams' face?
I remember it now.
It's a beautiful thing, though, isn't it?
It is a beautiful... I think if I was going to get murdered by a mental bloke with 3 nipples, that is how I would want to go. Well, don't put those in...
word to me.
The great thing about Jaws as a baddie was he was in 2 James Bond films.
He has two bosses. The first is Stromberg, Spy Love Me.
Right.
The second is Hugo Drax from Moonraker.
Now, he got laid off from the first boss, am I correct? He passed away.
Well, Stromberg died. He swam away at the end of the film.
And then what happens
He got
then?
another job. You know, they find a placement for these people.
Where did he go? Was he just down the
I
local...
think you go to a kind of office and they assign you to a supervillain. This is the original model of Rosa Klebb's shoe.
Now, there was a lady that favoured the flatter shoe, if you know what I'm saying.
Over here, we have Oddjob's hat. Now, this is worth £64,000.
Many people have tried to involve themselves in my affairs, unsuccessfully.
He was originally married, Oddjob, and he had a wife, and he used to try and be like James Bond and throw his hat so as it would go on the stand, but she was decapitated.
That's terrible,
on the honeymoon. It was very, very sad, and that's what turned him evil.
And this is the crocodile submarine from Octopussy. How are you finding it in there?
It's not a brilliant idea, in my opinion, for
Why is
Bond.
that?
Well, what he's done is he's thought, right, I need to get into this place. What is an animal that they definitely won't shoot? And he's gone for a crocodile.
Yeah.
But they didn't shoot it and he didn't get in, so maybe
he was right and you were wrong.
Possibly. He is a master spy.
So do you think I would make a good James Bond?
No. You're just saying what everyone's thinking, David. I just don't think you make a very good Bond.
Here, wave this! Doug! We've nothing to declare!
Tim was your Bond. Is he your favourite Bond?
Of course, because he's my Bond. I had such an image of Bond and Bond girls, 5'10", superwomen. It was really showing how the power of women had sort of evolved over 40 years.
You've asked for this. James Bond, who only has to make love to a woman and she starts to hear heavenly choir singing. She repents and immediately returns to the side of right and virtue. But not this one.
I'm looking for Dr. Goodhead.
You just found her.
A woman?
Your powers of observation do you credit, Mr. Bond?
This time, Mr. Bond, the pleasure will be all mine.
Not interested, man. Take my word for it. Not even a glimmer.
Are you here for a reason? Or are you just hoping for a glimmer?
What do you think makes a great Bond girl?
She's got to be feminine. She's got to have vulnerability. And at the same time, she's got to be sexy, sassy. She's got to be perfect, like a perfect woman. It's hard, isn't it?
I find it very hard to be a perfect woman, but I manage it somehow. What happens to Bond girls the next morning? Do you think he sort of calls them a taxi and makes some excuses? Says he's busy? Think he makes them a bit of breakfast, sort of says the taxi's on its way?
I don't even know if he makes them breakfast.
And what makes Bond so sexy?
Aloofness, charm, wit, intelligence.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm just writing some of these things down. Aloofness.
Aloofness.
What, be slightly rude to people?
No, not rude. Detached.
Detached.
So you want to own him. You want to
Okay.
grasp a piece of him, but you can't.
How can you act like this? How can you be so cold?
It's what keeps me alive.
He's unattainable. He's his own man, and he's mysterious.
Have you met the new Bond girl, Eva Green?
Yes. She's delicious. She's divine.
I'm the money.
Every penny of it.
Did she ask after me?
Of course she did, David. I was dying to meet you.
So as charming as you are, Mr. Bond, I will be keeping my eye on our government's money and off your perfectly formed house.
You noticed?
In the new film, I know that Daniel gets to drive both the old Aston and the new Aston, which I really, really like, that idea. And I think it's great that it's come back to being Aston Martins. It feels exactly right. You know, Bond should have a British car. So, Jay, you're not only a massive Bond fan, you're also a massive car fan.
Yeah.
Now, is this the ultimate Bond car, the DB5 from Goldfinger?
Yeah, in my mind.
So did you buy it purely because you're a Bond fan and you wanted to kind of live out your Bond fantasy?
Like most little boys. I mean, I was born in 1969.
You are a little boy.
I know I am a little boy. You're a big boy, aren't you?
A very big boy.
You're a bit bigger than me. I always wanted one. I'd seen Goldfinger when I was younger. It was on at Christmas.
Did you have the toy before you had...
I've still got it.
Have you still got the toys?
It's boxed as well. Is your one boxed?
Good evening, sir, and welcome back.
Welcome to my home.
So this is probably the second most famous Bond car, the Lotus Esprit from The Spy Who Loved Me.
Wonderful.
It's a thing of beauty, isn't it? It's sort of quite maligned now, but at the time it was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah, early 70s.
This is very much Roger's signature car, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sort of totally suits his Bond somehow. I mean, it's obviously also so iconic because it became a submarine, which is so cool.
And, you know, I love as well all this old switchgear in here. I mean, I've got
what
a feeling...
What does switchgear mean, sorry?
Oh, sort of lights, the panel lights, the interior lights, and, of course, the way that flipped round and it became the submarine. And that was the other thing that came up for auction, was the, I think it was a quarter-scale model of this with the
the one they used
that came out.
submarine.
Have you got that one in the box?
Not in the box, no.
I've got it in the box.
But again, I lost some of the rockets.
Ah.
Because you had the rockets.
That's right, the 4 rockets came out.
This is from The Living Daylights.
Timothy Dalton.
Yeah. How do you rate this car?
Oh, it's a stunning shape. I mean, this is the V8 muscle car from Aston. I did have one once. I had a Vantage. It was red, and I had to get rid of it because no one buys a red Aston.
Really?
Time to leave.
There's some great extras on this Aston Martin, aren't there? And you have the lasers, the skis at the side, and the rockets at the front are pretty cool.
M25 I could have done with those on the way round here. A beautiful looking thing.
Now, do you have one of these in your collection?
No.
Why not? What's wrong with this?
I've always wanted to go 2CV racing.
I thought it was very inventive in a Bond film to have a chase involving a car like this. I thought it was very, very witty. And it made for a very exciting chase.
Hold tight!
This is the most recent Bond car. Well, this is from Die Another Day, and this is the Vanquish.
It's not the same pretending to be Bond in this car as it is in...
No, well, that carries more weight.
Ladies first.
Wow.
This is the real deal. So, here...
Talk us through them.
This is that little screen. I like the way it's actually still on that little Alpine pass in Switzerland.
Ejector seats we don't have now.
No, I think...
Great idea, though, isn't it? A little red button.
Getting rid of annoying passengers. Fantastic.
And here you have the controls also for the machine gun. And the shield at the back.
The shield at the back.
Would you like to have these gadgets for real?
I've actually got a book with all the plans, and when I had a DB5, I did seriously consider at least having the reversible number plates.
Revolving number plates, naturally. Valid all countries.
That would be very useful for you with your police record.
With my police record, that would be a useful thing.
Spectre is a dedicated fraternity whose strength lies in the absolute integrity of its members.
The thing I love about Bond villains is that they really enjoy their villainy.
It was you who betrayed me. Now you will pay the penalty.
I warned you. We do not tolerate failure, number 3. You know the penalty.
Yes.
12 seconds. One day we must invent a faster working venom.
Good evening, Mr. Bond.
Blofeld.
Good evening, 007. Double jeopardy, Mr. Bond.
Here, in the untainted cradle of the heavens, will be created a new super race, a race of perfect physical specimens. Like gods, your offspring will return to Earth and shape it in their image.
Welcome to my nuclear family.
And I'll possess the scientific means to control or to destroy the economy of the whole world.
But that means I would have to be
dead.
What I like about the villains is that often they're, you know, as big as snobs as James Bond is, and so that Bond and the villain can often have a great conversation about food and wine. You know, they have a very, very civil kind of relationship with each other. When really there's this undercurrent of one of them going to try and kill each other any minute.
Live well, Scaramanga.
At $1 million a contract, I can afford to, Mr. Bond.
What makes a great Bond villain, Jonathan?
Well, Dr. No, in a way, was great. You know,
brilliant.
That memoir.
Well, Dr. No, so there's everything there. The Bond villain sort of template is absolutely set in that film.
Foreign,
instantly.
okay, mad, wealthy, okay, and you don't really care about him until he dies, you know, but he's scary.
I was the unwanted child of a German missionary and a Chinese girl of good family. Yet I became treasurer of the most powerful criminal society in China.
What do you think of the different Blofelds? Because a few different, there's been a few
Love
different ones.
Blofeld. And love.
Who's your favourite actor to play Blofeld?
Pleasance, Donald Pleasance.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Who's the guy who's got the more square face?
Charles Gray.
That's the one I'm thinking of, Charles Gray.
Charles Gray. Well, he actually drags up at one point in the film. Do you remember that?
Yes. I'm sure you remember it.
Well, well, well. Look what the cat dragged in. I'm delighted to meet you, Miss Case. I'd so dreaded the prospect of making this tedious journey alone.
Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd from Diamonds Are Forever.
Dr. Tynan, good evening.
Are probably the greatest henchmen of all time, because they're not just henchmen, they're gay lovers, which is brilliant. When they put a scorpion down someone's, back of someone's shirt.
Ha! Ha! Curious how everyone who touches those diamonds seems to die.
And then they walk off together, hand in hand. Stephen Burkoff, you played General Orlov, the villain in Octopussy.
I get what I want, then you get the genuine jewelry.
What's different about a Bond villain to the villains in those films?
They are really a drawback, a throwback to almost Elizabethan villains. They're so macabre, so inventive, and also peculiarly imaginative, which is standard villains that I've done before are very straightforward. You know what they want, you know what they're committed to, and they want what everybody wants. They're greedy and selfish and a bit stupid. But the Bond villains have a kind of almost a super ego. They just don't want to get more. They want somehow to be a great cog in the kind of universe, moving worlds round, changing continents, changing societies. They are committed to Satan.
The West is decadent and divided. It has no stomach to risk our atomic reprisals.
We must turn our energies to pressing domestic problems.
General Gogo, let me remind
Comrades,
you...
sit down.
I wish to tell
Both
you...
of you. World socialism will be achieved peaceably. Our military role is strictly defensive.
Yeah?
Is that understood, General Orlov?
The Bond films were the first in British films, in a way, to create what I would call a Wagnerian style of cinema. They all have heroes, like Bond, ready to grasp, get the sword, like Siegfried, and to slay the Nibelungs. But there is this theme of the great villains, the great heroes, fighting the villains, almost incomparable odds.
With Bond, you've got this sort of superhero in some ways. The villains really set the agenda as well.
He needs a measure. Bond is representing kind of abstraction. He doesn't really exist. He's too perfect. I mean, he's elegant, handsome, strong, vital,
Why do you always wear that thing?
I have a slight inferiority complex.
And in Connery's case, he's working class. So therefore, he represents the people, the masses, the common man. So everybody went mad for this. This is, fantastic.
Are there any other villains you sort of admired over the series?
I did. I admired Robert Shaw.
The first one won't kill you. Not the second. Not even the third. Not till you crawl over here and you kiss my foot.
It's a stage actor, and I think stage actors tend to bring to it a massive amount of experience. And suddenly Connery had a match.
I think the films are only as good as their villains.
I
think the ones that you really remember are the ones with great villains.
You had the Cold War with Russia, and I think villainy was in the air. And of course, the best villains then tended to be Russian villains. And the odd German.
Mr. Bond?
Yes?
This is Mr. Goldfinger. How do you do?
How do you do?
They're often from another country, aren't they?
Yes. It fulfills our sense, I was going to say, of xenophobia, of how we hate anything foreign.
Look after Mr. Bond. See that some harm comes to him.
Villains, in a way, need our sympathy. They're like Januses. They have two sides. The one side, they have to show the good side, and yet the other side is when they're carrying out their deeds. So they're schizophrenic.
Alec? Back from the dead. No longer just an anonymous star on the memorial wall at MI6. What's the matter, James? No glib remark? No pithy comeback?
With the Bond films, you know where you are. You know here's your hero. He will fight for you. He will die for you. He will kill for you. But most of all, Bond is Britain.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, son.
The music is really key, though, because the music is so exciting and dramatic that it really kind of defines the world of Bond. And I think that if you're driving along in a car, I mean, my first car was a pale blue Ford Fiesta, but if I put Bond tape in the stereo, I felt like I was James Bond.
The real kind of deadly part of it is this. And there's something about the insistence of that. Everyone has an opinion about what a Bond song should be. And, they kind of fall into three different categories. There's the you're a dangerous stranger kind of, velvet curtain of a record.
Diamonds are forever.
There's the sort of Goldfingery, the kind of big brash,
drama.
Then you have the, On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Live and Let Die.
Live and let die.
When you score a James Bond film, do you just sort of immerse yourself in the films and the scores? And when you're about to write a new Bond song, do you think, oh, how is this going to fit in the canon?
As a Bond fan, there's also, I have an expectation about perhaps what I'd like to hear.
Can we hear a little bit of it?
Yes, we have these kind of...
think this is one of the most aggressive and exciting Bond themes I've ever heard. You played it to me at my house. And
Yeah.
Do you remember I did a little dance to
Yes,
it?
I did, yeah, and nudity was involved.
You filmed it on your mobile phone, didn't you?
I still have it.
What happened is David came around my house and we had a party and you played the Bond theme and then I did a sort of strange strip to it down to my underpants.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Why do I do these things?
It's in a way, it's your calling card.
Yes.
Do you want a clean kill or do you want to send a message?
We want him alive. The Schiffer doesn't have 100 million to lose.
Has he been playing the stock market with his client's funds? I'm not going to be too happy when they find out it's gone.
We can't let him win this game. If he loses, he'll have nowhere to run. We'll give him sanctuary in return for everything he knows. I'm putting you in the game, replacing someone who's playing for a syndicate. According to Villiers, you're the best player in the service. Trust me, I wish it wasn't the case. I would ask you if you could remain emotionally detached. But I don't think that's your problem, is it, Bond?
I completely kind of took my lead from the way that Daniel played it, and I think based the whole idea of the song and the kind of drive of the score on the way that he moves.
James, get the girl out.
I remember sitting down with Daniel and going, like, it's almost like a come and have a go if you think you're hard enough approach. You know, it needs to be, I'm here, whatever you got, bring it on because I'm ready for you. And that kind of covers the character. And I think it also covers the fact that it's a new Bond and it's Daniel and it's gonna be confrontational.
Fancy another copper? All right, Dave.
Win £70,000 with the Bond. James Bond scratch card.
The powerful new Vio with advanced Intel Centrino Duo mobile technology. Equip yourself like Bond.
I knew it was too early to promote you.
Well, I understand double O's have a very short life expectancy.
Daniel Craig is James Bond in Casino Royale.
Pretty tough, yeah? Yeah, pretty tough. Okay. How do we do that and not get hurt?
Basically, there's numerous ways. Camera angles are very important.
Okay.
Obviously now, you know, with this camera here, if you sort of punch me straight on the nose there and literally stop there,
yeah,
because you always want to do it for safety, the camera's going to see the difference. Whereas that camera facing there, if you do the same thing again, if you just put your face out there, like, so you do that now, if you do that punch again, it's all reactions, camera angles. Reactions are very important because that's what sells it.
You ready
Nice
for
and
this?
slowly.
You sure,
Nice
yeah?
and slowly.
You sure you're ready for this?
I'm born
Okay, I'll
ready.
do it. So where do you want me to punch you?
Just sort of throw the punch to here.
To here, just
bend
miss.
the duck out of the way, and then he'll put you in a lock.
Yeah. Okay, I've got quite a bad elbow.
Okay.
So just to warn you.
Oh!
Yeah. That hurts a little bit. There is a stunt at the start of Casino Royale, a fight. It's on the crane sequence, isn't it? Where Bond kicks someone in the leg, and we're going to attempt that today. Yeah.
Stands there, he kicks down, and as he kicks down, you turn your leg.
Just go like that?
Yeah, basically, yeah, as he comes down with your leg, literally just twist your leg and go down with it. Slowly.
Nice and slow, and...
Oh, that hurt. That hurt. No, I'm acting now.
Good acting.
So, something like the stairwell scene in the new film, how long does that take to prep?
We had about 3 weeks of rehearsal.
How long to shoot something like that?
That's about 3 to 4 days.
Wow. So did you used to visit the Bond sets as a kid?
Yeah, the first one I actually visited was The Spy Who Loved Me, where there's the 3 nuclear submarines inside the 007 stage.
Wow, so how old were you when you saw
14.
that? 14. Wow, that must have been pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
And your dad, wasn't he one of the ninjas that came down from the ceiling and you only did twice? How did that work?
Basically what that was is just sort of normal climbing rope with a garden hose pipe cut, put round it, and literally you slid down, and when you got to the bottom, you twisted it and come to a stop.
Name some favourite stunts from Bond movies over the years, what would you say?
Man with a Golden Gun, the car doing the...
That's fantastic. Is that the only time that's been done?
With a car, and then lucky enough I was allowed to do it in The World Is Not Enough with the Q-boat.
So they're that kind of legendary stunts that you talk about in the stunt world?
The ones that like you see that you sort of love to be involved in, you say like, you know, the speedboats in Live and Let Die.
Fantastic sequence. I think it's what makes Bond so great. It's always done kind of with humour, isn't it?
It's done with humour, and it's just so much different to any other film.
I think there was probably a moment in the late 80s when you almost had to make an apology for being a Bond fan. Because you think, oh, yes, I know, I'm sorry, they are sexist.
Man talk.
They are violent. But suddenly, those battles have sort of been won and people could feel okay liking them again. And I think that's when I started to really appreciate them as films. I mean, I enjoyed them as a lot as children, as we all did. And then I started to realise, yeah, you know, these soundtracks are amazing. These casts are amazing. These scripts are brilliant and witty.
And how did you get in? I'll call security and congratulate them.
Roald Dahl wrote the screenplay to You Only Live Twice.
You should give up smoking. Cigarettes are very bad for your chest.
Mr. Osato believes in a healthy chest.
Really?
There's a lot of quality going into these films. The Ken Adams set design. He is probably the greatest film set designer of all time. You find out that Stanley Kubrick lit Stromberg's bass for The Spy Who Loved Me, and you go, wow.
Call.
Gentlemen, show down, please. Full house.
Martin Campbell, you've directed Casino Royale. How does Casino Royale differ from other Bond films?
It differs considerably from, I think, all the other Bond films in that it's a much more reality-based Bond. This story, of course, is a much more focused and personal story for Bond. And more importantly, it really goes from the moment he gets his 00 license until he becomes James Bond.
I knew it was too early to promote you.
Well, I understand 00s have a very short life expectancy, so your mistake will be short-lived.
And how do you think Bond films differ from other action films? Because I sit through something like, you know, Mission Impossible films or True Lies or something. I go, it's good, but it's just not Bond.
Well, action-wise, it's clearly, it always used to have some action scene you'd never seen before. I remember was it The Spy Who Loved Me, the skiing off the mountain? To me, it's one of the greatest moments, I think.
It's one of the great moments in cinema, let alone great moments in Bond
films. And even
films,
now I watch that breathless, and there's no cuts, they just pan this guy off the mountain. If you look at that, you see the ski hit his parachute.
Yeah.
And my God, anything could have happened. It always sort of reinvented the wheel with some part of the action. I think in GoldenEye we tried the tank chase.
It's fantastic.
There was the jump off the dam, which was a homage to, of course, the scene we've just talked about. So you hope at least you do something in the movie that you haven't seen before.
One day Daniel Craig will have to move on. Do you think I would make a good Bond?
I don't think you really could make Bond, to be honest with you. You know why? And it's a good thing. You're too nice. You're too sort of like sweet-natured and warm-hearted. You walk in a room and there's Blofeld with a cat, okay?
I'd want to stroke the cat.
You want to stroke the cat. You wouldn't make a Bond. Look at the size of you. You're too big. They'd have to find some giant actress to perform against you on stilts. You take up too much space. You're big head, big body, big shoulders.
Everything is wrong, isn't it?
Really odd. Just an odd-looking man. But this is tough love coming at you now. Get over it. It's not going to happen. Never going to happen.
Thank you.
You can't be Bond.
Thank you.
Yeah, just stop.
You've said enough, thank you.
Just walking nuts faster.
Does he get the gun out of his jacket, or has he got it already? Where should my legs be?
Well, I think we didn't have a hat. Okay, stand by. Hold it, point that gun straight, lock it.
His leg's gone a bit weird. I can't wait to have a son so that I can go, sit him down and make him watch all the James Bond films. Basically just so I can watch them.
Nobody does it better. Makes me feel sad.
And if that's left you wanting more from 007, then head to ITV2 now for a deadly mission with the man himself. Pierce Brosnan in The World Is Not Enough. Meanwhile, it's A Touch of Frost over on ITV3, and it's all a bit bizarre here on ITV1 next for Tarrant on TV.
Oh, so you think I would make a good James Bond? That's very interesting. Yes, I'd love to meet up next week and discuss that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, goodbye. Dale Winton.
Spend a week with the only man who can make saving the world look this effortless.
Grow up, 007.
The build-up to Casino Royale continues. The Brosnan Bond Week, Die Another Day, tomorrow at 9, ITV2.